system. And it also guarantees you biological food, because if you have any chemicals in there, the fish are not going to like it. So that's a very good system to create in the future for resilience. You can also design your houses to have a lot of multifunctional. We can look at that later as well. Also, because you're far away from cities, you can actually use biodigesters to handle the human waste as well. So you don't need a processing plant. You've got your microgrids that could be created there. So you have a backup of the central grid, but then the majority of the power is produced on site, and then it's managed differently. So when it's needed in a certain industry, people leave their homes, they're working. The production from the power at night, during the day, is produced into the industry or stored, and then at night it goes back to the people. And then of course a lot of greenery, as much greenery as possible to cool your land surface.
How stable is the electrical grid on Cyprus?
It is, I mean, we don't have electrical problems, but when we're looking at alternative energy, it can be a problem because we have a grid that's wasn't designed for spikes. It needs its constant power. So we had licenses released to people who had land to put up solar panels. When they realized, they actually stopped that because they realized that, you know, a cloud would come over or something, and then all of a sudden there was a big drop in power, and then it would like affect another part of the system. So it actually needs to be somehow upgraded to a much more resilient grid. We also have the grid connecting to the north, but we don't have jurisdiction in the north, so that becomes an additional issue. The north is securing their basic needs, so let's say in 2008 we had a drought, and we actually had tankers of water from Greece coming to Cyprus to fill in the dams. However, now the northern side have actually two pipelines from Turkey who are actually supplying water to the south, to the north of the island. It's not something we have on our side. So they're in water, they could be more resilient. Again, they're still dependent on a foreign. If Turkey runs out of water, then what are we going to do? What are they going to do? You can't really keep it as a guarantee. And we are well behind our, could be SDG, I don't know, it's basically the European, the EU have dictated to each country they need, let's say, 20% renewable energy by 2020 or whatever. We're way behind that. We do need to act on that. And we're actually paying fines for that at the moment. Again, that means you can just be very creative of what can come in as inputs into the system, and also as outputs. So you can create biofuels and production from algae. There are a lot of examples around the world that you can just tap into and just sort of implement there. But again, the idea here is to be independent. So you have the village, you might as well create a system there that you don't depend on, you know, the main power source coming in, or the water, or the sewage. And zone 4. So this is the sea. This is the coastline of Cyprus, where there's a lot of opportunity. It's little known. People don't really think about, you know, carbon sinking or whatever in the ocean. However, the oceans are actually have been saving us. They absorb 50 times as much CO2 as the atmosphere. And that's why, even though if we do all the changes in reducing our CO2, there's still going to be a lag of so many, I don't know how many years ahead, because then now the balance, the CO2 from the sea is going to start coming out. So it's given us a nice buffer, but it also means that when we clean up our atmosphere, it's going to be not as quick as we think.
But the acidity of the ocean is also rising because of the...
Absolutely. The reaction of CO2 with salt water is creating hydrogen ions, which is creating acidity in the water, which then causes the seashell life not to be able to create their shells, your coral not to be created, and it's actually the very basic point of the food chain that's actually being affected, and that's just going to knock on throughout the food chain in the sea. In the sea. So Patrick's familiar with this. This is basically French invention. It's more or less an off-grid vessel using wind, solar. This is a fishing vessel. Its capacity is, I think, 60,000 tons of fish. What it does is with the catch, it uses actually whale technology to catch the fish, so it'll explode like water, air underneath the sea and the lower depths, and then unbalance the fish. The fish will rise, and then they just scoop up the fish. Using that, it will also scan the fish. If there's any pregnant fish, it will send it back into the ocean. So you're actually allowing the population to keep increasing. And it also won't freeze the fish. It saves about $250,000 in diesel costs per year. So that's just obviously one idea of what could be created or what has been created. In our case, we're looking at something a bit different.
But working already, yeah?
Those are working. There's 14 of them working. Unfortunately, I tried to find a company and it seems to have closed down. But the technology is there. Yeah. Someone can start it up, you know.
I heard that there are 40 of them in Indonesia fishing.
Of these vessels?
Yeah.
Wow, brilliant.
Yeah.
That's hopeful. We can talk later. Okay. So basically, these are developed by a chap in New England who used to be a professional fisherman. He saw in the fish stocks reducing and lots of his friends losing jobs and so forth. And he wanted to he loves the sea and he still wants to work in the sea. And he came across and developed this technology called 3D farming. And this is basically has lots of advantages, aside from absorbing 5 times the amount of carbon that from the terrestrial plants. It's not seen, so there's no obstruction. So you can actually sail through here, you're not going to be affecting anything. There's no big wind turbine or something looking at, affecting the view or the beauty. And it's actually working with the full water table, so you don't have any space per se. It's mobile. I mean, basically, it's very easy to set up, and it can produce a lot of food, of which is very highly nutritious, and it's very affordable, so most sustainable and stuff. So, and these are also acting as surge brakes, storm brakes. So there are a multitude of benefits of creating this. This will increase your fish population. This is also a great scuba diving opportunity. So it's tourism. So there's a lot of pluses for making this. And of course it's helping the planet. So again, the inputs and outputs, pretty much self-explanatory. Products you can create from seaweed as feed, fertilizer, medicine, cosmetics, textile, leather, biofuel. So even there's a lot of from these type of farms, there's a lot of outputs that you can create. So it's a lot of opportunity there. So ideally, would envision, let's say, starting in one place. Let's say the red dot there. You see the division is more or less there, so it's close to both sides. Maybe it's a bi-communal thing, I don't know. It would be nice to be. And then the yellow dots indicate the next steps, so you're starting to spread these ideas and practices through both sides of the island, and then all of these communities take care of their area, and then the island starts to green out, and then obviously you have your nature reserves around the island. So these are in pretty much unused areas. You don't have beaches here, and they have a lot of currents, so it's not like it would be interfering with your beach communities and so forth. So in my view, it's quite quite doable. Urban areas we didn't really go into, but there are a lot of practices. You've got your green buildings, your green roofs, absorbable surfaces, because right now the way we've constructed is to reject the water that falls on a city, but it actually have a good opportunity to actually gather that water, sink it into the ground, save it, rather than having it cause havoc when it rains. Some of these are some of the practices. The other thing is a very simple thing which you can see here is when it rains, you actually have your ground areas lower than your surface. So when it rains, everything is dry or dryish, and this is what floods, and that's how you're sinking water continuously, like I pictured there. Also, passive house design. We've got right now 25 passive house projects. So in let's say 40 degrees weather with one 900 BTU split unit, it would be very low setting. You could be cooling the house very moderately. So the majority of the energy is actually through design is designed to be net zero, and so you just need a small addition, possibly in really hot days or very cold days. But it all becomes, how well it's insulated and the air flows throughout the building. And this is from Sweden. Is it from Sweden? The architect, I think he's Swedish, right?
I don't know.
Anyway, he's basically.
I thought it was Germany where they.
No, he's not somewhere in. No, I think it's Sweden. Anyway, basically.
It says Sweden also in the picture.
Yeah, there we go. I'll do it.
The top one. Now I thought the passive house.
Oh no, this is Cyprus. This is basically what one company that's doing this is actually a friend of mine, and he's now got 25 houses already active, which is great. He would be a contact if anyone was building there. But this is inspired by termites, so you have very hot.
Oh, definitely,
yeah.
That's in Sweden. Yeah.
That's in Sweden. So.
But also building of interface here in Cyprus. They also built one building like that.
Oh, brilliant!
Yeah.
Oh wow, I'd love to see that. So he's using plants to clean the air in the buildings, right? Aside from using exchange with the air underground, so using geothermal to keep the air either raise or lower the temperature of the air. He's also using plants as natural filters and oxygenating the air and so forth. So again, increasing the livelihood of the people. So these are just some ideas that could be implemented citywide. The green roofs, I'm actually involved with the project with the green roofs. We're trying to get this started in Cyprus. So we won the climathon, the 24-hour climathon with that idea. And so it's early days, but we hope to get something going there. But again, if you look at I didn't put it in this presentation, but there's pictures from somewhere in Slovenia or something, where they took infrared photos of it was just like a square with a little forest or something on the side of it, and you could see it was like 37 degrees on the side of the building, 42 degrees on the top of the building, and so forth. But anywhere you actually looked at the trees, it would be a constant, even if it was on the very top of the tree or on, like in the shady part of the tree, it would be like 24, 25 degrees or something like that. So it's very important to have that just to keep the microclimate cooler. Okay, so these we saw, the green roofs and everything. More green we have, the better it is. Again, yeah, simple practice. Instead of creating a mound around it, have it deeper than the surrounding surface, so actually the overflow goes into there. That's it, pretty much. Okay, these we did fine. The last thing I'd like to talk about is actually power generation. So these are all identified, all the dams or the bigger dams on the island, and I also identified these are the watersheds. So the watershed is basically all the water falling on this area, for example, the 3.7, is actually going to flow inside this area. So this is, you could imagine this is like a type of ridge, and water, as the rain falls here, it's going to either go this way or that way. So everything in this area is flowing into that, and so on and so forth. So I looked at 3.7 because I wanted altitude. These are the mountain ranges here, and there's a mountain range along here, as you can see with that line there. And so I saw these two dams there, and I said, okay, what about, let's have a look at them. So we have this one, which is at an elevation of 1150 with a capacity of 59,000 cubic meters. The lowest one has 1.5 million cubic meters of water, and it's down at 340 meters with 3 in between, which gives us a height difference of 810 meters. And I looked at El Hierro, which is a Spanish island. We can actually look at that quickly. So I don't know if you're familiar with this, but this is, if you look at the Canary Islands here, the westmost island looks like this. They had a lot of costs for energy, like 6 million a year, and they wanted to get more energy independent, and so they looked at what they could be done. And Gunter Pauli is one of Gunter Pauli's projects. They identified an area which would be useful. What they did is they built a reservoir at a high elevation. It's at 700 meters high, and I think it's, we'll see it later, I think it's 1.5 million capacity or something. And then they have 2 pipelines going from this dam down to a power station, and then goes to a lower reservoir, and then there's a distillation plant there as well. And so what they do, as you can see there, that's the lower area. What they do is they have alternative energy, which are windmills. When the production of the energy for the windmills exceeds what is needed at the time, it's used to generate, to power pumps that are actually pumping water up the hill all the way to the upper elevation. And then when the wind stops and they need power, using gravity, they just allow water to come down. And they have either 4 or 5 turbines at the lower elevation there that are then being turned by the falling water and generating electricity. And then when they don't need it, and the excessive water from there is actually going into agriculture as well, because it's still, it has been desalinated. So in a similar way, we could actually do the same thing here. We've got the height difference that they have. Theirs is, their dam is or reservoir is at an elevation of 700 meters. So between the 2 dams, or the generator is probably about 600, 650. We're at 810. And also, the top reservoir is 150,000 cubic meters, and the bottom is 1.6. The top one is 59 here, and that's 1.4. So this just needs to be enlarged, which may not be too big a deal. And then you could actually set up a similar system there that would actually then produce energy and provide energy for all the different communities in that area, and self-sufficient.
Do you have enough wind?
We do have wind. On that side of the island, you'd probably have a lot of, because it's either, it's usually in this direction here. So, because this is sort of okay, if you see where it says Mount Olympus, that's the very top point. So all the mountains are slowly going, let's say, down that way. So you'd have, I'd have to obviously go there and check it, but I can imagine that there is wind going over that area. And otherwise you just have it slightly on, 2 kilometers, 5 kilometers on this side of the bridge, and then have the wind come in there and just run cables or something. Again, it would be, if you see also El Hierro, you got your wind turbines over there, and then you've got the power generation over here. So they also have distance. So I guess that's something that we could actually place the wind turbines. It doesn't have to be right next door. So that's another idea to have as a blue economy idea. So the impact, if we're looking at all this, so we're coming to the conclusion here, we can actually, our climate and our situation, there are a lot of countries, a lot of different communities and areas around the world in this belt, which is a very dry belt, that could learn from this. So it could actually become like a benchmark for like a blueprint